Hey everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Learning Golang from Zero. Wow, we even have some comments already in the chat. I love that. Ronak, welcome back. LinkedIn user, I don't know why it doesn't show a LinkedIn user's name, asks, will this be recorded? Yeah, this will be recorded. And these are actually all on YouTube. I can go ahead and post a link to the archived episodes on YouTube. I think our excellent marketing person Dan has been actually good enough to put all of the learning Golang from zero videos into a playlist. So you could just watch through the whole playlist and then maybe you'll know Go. Um, give me one moment to pull that up, please. Okay, I'm going to post the link in the chat now. I hope that you enjoy watching the back episodes. If anybody has watched back episodes, I would love your feedback on how to improve the experience. One thing that I want to try and do a better job of is splitting them into little segments so that you can kind of like jump to a segment that's more interesting to you. One interesting meta note is that I learned that I should be calling this programming language Go rather than calling it Golang. The reason I was calling it Golang is because the word go is pretty common in English, and I just wanted to be, unambiguous there. But I'm going to try and call it Go. I guess we could rename retrospectively the series to Learning Go from Zero. It might have been, I don't know, it might be a little late. But I feel bad about calling it the unofficial name. It was out of ignorance, not malice. So yeah, this week I got my ears pierced. I got little onyx studs. It was very expensive because I went to a tattoo parlor. I think I should have just gone to like the random piercing shack in the mall, but I guess they did a good job. So beyond that, my other mission this week is making very clear ice cubes for cocktails. They just like look cool. There's this freezing process where you can freeze the ice cubes in this special device that has like a cooler built into it, so the ice cubes only freeze from one direction, and it makes them super clear. I'm definitely enjoying clear ice cubes. Hector Jose Compan Gabucio says Golang is better for search engines. Yeah, I bet that Google is smart enough to know like, oh, because it knows all this context, Google can probably say like, oh, you typed Go and contexts, you obviously mean Golang. But I think for other purposes, like if I'm searching on our internal corporate wiki or searching in Slack or something for the word Go, then it's like I don't think the Slack search is like context aware enough to understand if I mean to say Go the language or if I'm just using the word Go as part of a sentence. So yeah, that's why I was saying Golang. But I understand that that is not kosher. So I'll be attempting to say Go. Speaking of which, what are we doing this week? So hoping to get back to this book, Learn Go with Tests. And What this is going to do is this book has both exercises and informational content on programming in Golang. We started with Hello World and have worked all the way up to some pretty neat concurrent programming stuff, which for me is quite fun. So what I'm hoping to cover this week is the chapter on context. And the idea with a context, I guess we'll learn more, but I think of it as something for managing life cycles of mostly long-running processes. For example, you might have a service that contains multiple different servers within it, and you can use context as a tool to like coordinate, taking an action like shutting down your service. What I'm thinking of as an analogy for this, I want to say there's this thing in Guava that gives you a bunch of different states for a service. I searched for Guava Lifecycle, and it turns out that the usual germination time is 2 to 3 weeks, but they can take up to 8 weeks. What I actually meant, though, was not the Guava tree, but Guava, the library by Google for various like Java utilities. Yeah, so this is kind of what I'm thinking of. You've got a service abstraction in Guava, and it has various different states. I think of Golang's context as analogous to this, but I think it'll be interesting to see how context differs from Java. For anybody who's worked on server programming, I'm curious what tools you use to manage the life cycle of your different components. At Cockroach, we use context a lot because it's built into Golang, and it's, I think it's the preferred way to manage life cycles. Although I know Cockroach also has some custom life cycle management stuff. I think there's something called a stopper that is fairly complicated, and I don't work on the open source side, so I'm not that familiar with it yet. Ronak says, is this referring to the state of the service or managing the state of a given request? That's a really good question. This is for the state of the service as a whole. So, yeah, not per request. Canceling actions is, I think, a pretty hard problem in a lot of applications, especially if there's something like I try to cancel an action, but maybe it fails to cancel even because the action has already succeeded. So there's interesting questions, and then it's like should you be able to cancel a cancellation? I would say that seems a little silly for most applications, but I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if I'm on, the Lyft app or something and I cancel my ride, but then I'm like, oh, and it's like taking a long time to cancel, then I might want to be like, oh, actually, maybe I actually do want the ride. Hopefully we don't have to get into anything crazy like that. So we're going to start with a classic example of a web server that, when hit, kicks off a potentially long-running process to fetch some data for it to return in the response. We will exercise a scenario where a user cancels the request before the data can be retrieved, and we'll make sure the process is told to give up. So I think this is actually kind of an optimization where the process, I mean, what we could do is we could just let the process continue running and it would retrieve the data and then we just would kind of throw away the data. But of course, we don't want to do this extra work unless we actually need the data. All right. So as per usual, let's see where we are in Git. Make a context directory. I think a good goal for this week would be to try and catch compiler errors with my brain before the compiler catches them, if possible. All right. So I'm going to copy paste this server code into a file called context.go. Interesting that the book is actually starting with a server because I find that the book has taken a pretty hardcore test-driven development approach. So they often begin with tests. Maybe we'll see some tests soon. Large data bank, welcome. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what is the equivalent of this of context in like Java or other programming languages? Like, do other programming languages have something like this? How's my Friday going? The Friday is pretty good. Mostly working on Cockroach Cloud tech lead stuff. So some pretty fun stuff there, but top secret. Java thread locals? ? Ooh, I never learned too much about thread locals. Oh, yeah. I think that would be fun to go back and learn more about thread locals. Ron Knox says, I know of libraries such as Finatra's Lifecycle. Finatra is in Scala, and it's like, if I remember right, it's like a Scala version of the Ruby Sinatra framework. Yeah. This is okay. Yeah, so this is great. This has a lifecycle, a server startup lifecycle. And I definitely don't know Finatra. Oh man. So they actually give you the life cycle and then all these specific functions like a warm up, and then you can throw in your own hooks. That's cool. I would say that I think this is going to be a lot more complex than what we're getting in Golang. But of course, there's a trade-off because you probably the Golang thing is actually built into the language, which I think it's pretty interesting. Go builds some neat stuff into the language that other languages would only have as libraries. Yeah, so we've got a lot of different hooks. Ronak, are you mainly a Scala programmer? I did Scala at my previous job for about 4 years, and I really enjoyed learning it. But as I may have said before on the stream, I find it a little bit complex and edge casey to use as like my everyday thing. Okay, JVM, Java, and Scala. Yeah, my approach is to kind of like treat Scala as like just super Java and to not use too much of the more advanced type system stuff. Shep, have you tried meditation? Welcome back. Am I winning? I would say I'm about tied right now. Yeah. How's your Friday going? So I'm going to copy in this little thing. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I have upgraded my streaming a little bit. I got yeah, now I have this chat in the one box, and I got the yeah, I'm using this thing Restream, which we're trying out at Cockroach. I think it's cool uh because it lets you stream to multiple places at once, and you also don't even download any software. You just um you just stream directly from your browser, which is compared to setting up OBS for streaming, which I found to be a lot of work. I thought it was really nice. Ooh, now I got to remember which of the things has quotes in it. I think the import one does have quotes, but then when we put the package at the top, it doesn't. It's either that or the other way around. Nice meditation emoji. Ronak says, very edge casey, steep learning curve, and sometimes idiomatic Scala is hard to read lol. Yes, definitely agree with that. By the way, Scala 3.0, I believe, was just released like today or yesterday. I haven't really checked it out, but I know, I mean, they've been working on it for a really long time, like a few years. Sora C10, welcome. How was the barbecue? Uh oh, it was actually really fun. It was like the first like party that I have been to in like a year. So it was like really satisfying. Thanks for asking. We also made some Sion skewers of little lamb with some chili, cumin, sugar, salt, a little bit of fennel seed, uh, just a little bit of MSG, and they were really delicious. Definitely want to make lamb skewers again. LinkedIn user asks, "Can you build desktop app with Golang?" Yeah, I'm sure that you can, but I have no idea how to do it. I think that it's not really designed for doing desktop apps. You need some kind of framework. Shep, have you tried meditation? Says Xi'an cumin lamb skewers. Yes, definitely that. Yeah, the secret, use a nice cut of lamb. Give it a nice marinade in like Shaoxing wine for a few hours, and make sure to taste your rub. So over here, we've got this store. Does anybody happen to know, by the way, if there is a reasonable way to do Golang desktop apps? Source 10 only getting vaxxed in late September. Yeah, I apologize on behalf of America for hoarding all of our vaccines. That was not very nice of us, even though it personally benefited me. Large data bank says spicy cumin lamb noodles. Yeah, I have a good recipe for those. You really have to knead the dough a lot. Otherwise, the noodles become too chewy, and my partner will refuse to eat them. So we've got this store type with a fetch function. I'm guessing that we are going to make a dummy version of this for testing so that we don't actually, so that we can like put a little, let's say like a timer on it. There we go. So let's take a look at this store stub. This stub is going to return immediately. No kind of like timeout or anything like that. So, and it will always succeed. I noticed the fetch function does not have it it always returns successfully. There's no possibility of an error. I think that would maybe just add more complexity than we want. So we can probably go ahead and put this test code into a test file. Let me just read over the test first. So we're going to do it. We're going to use HTTP test, which is hard to say, and also a pretty cool Golang technology that lets us build. It lets us actually create a real HTTP server that we can really conveniently use for testing. Oh, and it also lets us do requests. That's nice. Okay, so this test should probably just pass. So, oh man, I need like, you know how streams have all those like weird little gamifications? I think I should have like one roach coin for every time someone helps me find a problem in my Go program. And then you can use the roach coins, you can redeem them on Cockroach Cloud as free credits. One roach coin will let you run a dedicated 3-node cluster for 2.5 seconds. That's our exchange rate, I think. Large data. I saw that you wrote roach coins in all caps. Maybe you wrote something else in all caps. I don't know how to unmoderate things, though. I think I would have to be on I probably would have to be on the Twitch like page. Oh, and things probably get moderated differently in different. Okay, I think. Yeah, I don't know how. I guess the moderation channel would be different on YouTube. So maybe you got caught by the Twitch auto moderation logic or something. So, where am I? Okay. Mesh, welcome back. Yeah. I think there has to be some easy way to make a bespoke, stupid cryptocurrency these days, right? Like, I want something that I can like, I don't know, like just pay like $10 a month and have somebody like make a blockchain for me with all of the functionality. It probably would actually cost like $10,000 a month. So what are we going to import here? We're going to need to import testing. Everyone is always telling me that I shouldn't write import on every line, which is probably true. So I'm going to need, where am I going to get that HTTP test? It's maybe like net/HTTP, something like that. And I guess I do need to import net/HTTP as well. What I'm going to do is look up HTTP test. I mentioned this a little earlier, but okay, so this is the right path. My goal is to try to not have compile errors today. It's a lofty goal, I think. and also maybe not that fun because it'll just be the stream will just be me like staring at my code for 10 minutes before I compile it every time. Oh, every time I make a compile error, I lose 1 roach coin though. So I'd have to earn it back. Okay, write the test first. Right, so this is the happy path. Let's just test this out. Oh no, I forgot the package right when I typed it. I was like, mess this up. Ooh, forgot to import format. Yeah. Let's do the parenthesis thing here as well. Anyone have any fun plans for the weekend? I would say, ooh. Oh, I have one thing. I'm doing my weekly cocktail club, so that should be pretty fun. Maybe some smoking some old fashions this weekend. Go test. Okay. I only lost 1 roach coin for having a compile failure. That's pretty good. Context is the name of my git commit. If this were like a project that other people were working on, I would probably make more informative commit messages. I would not like it if somebody on the Cockroach Cloud team just wrote a 1-word commit message. So we need a way to tell the store to cancel the work. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I feel like in a real store, it would not, like your interface would not look like this at all because you would presumably be able to make different requests. So first of all, fetch would probably take some kind of key as input, but even if you had 2 fetches for the same key, you might want to be able to cancel one fetch without canceling the other one. So you might want to be able to actually give every request an ID of some kind so that you can cancel a particular a thing on the request level. But I think I think this is a nice simplification for the purposes of learning. Uh-oh. So I slowed down my tests by adding this racer thing. I think it actually just does a sleep that's long. Okay, so this is a spy store. Ooh, a fun fact that I'm often saying about the word canceled also applies to words like traveled or tunneled is that in American English, it's often it's preferred to spell it with 1 L, but I think a lot of Americans don't know that because the spell check will also allow you to spell it with 2 L's. In British English, 2 L's is preferred, or actually possibly required in British English. All right, spy store. So now we are storing a canceled bool that will, maybe we need to, this is interesting because right now the cancel bool appears to not do anything. we still will successfully return the response. So I'm guessing that's where we're going to incorporate contexts. I'm guessing it's probably a little bit painful for Vim users to watch me using Vim because like I'm not really using any like advanced Vim functionality. I'm like uh I'm like freshman computer science student level of Vim usage here. But I don't feel ashamed. Let's add a new test where we cancel the request before 100 milliseconds and check the store to see if it gets canceled. Right. And presumably it's not going to get canceled with the current spy store because all we're doing is setting the Boolean to be true. Oh, look at this. So this is actually how we're using a context. So we're setting the spy store up with some mock data to return, creating the new server, hitting the server. Then after hitting the server, we are creating. Oh, so does this new request function actually make the request go, or does this just create the request? Ah, okay. It does not make the request go. I think that only when we call this serve HTTP function will the request actually be kicked off. But please, if somebody knows better, do correct me. Ah, okay. So let's take a close look at this code because this is all stuff that we have not seen before. So we're calling context.withCancel, and the request has a context method that we're calling, and my understanding is we're pretty much wrapping the request's context. Now, what would happen if we wrapped the request's context in like two different context with cancel calls? That seems like a bad idea, but maybe you would accidentally do it or something. Ronak says, it's really interesting that the response is a parameter to make the HTTP request. You're saying here on this serve HTTP line? Yeah. So this is an HTTP test new recorder. Did we use that before? Yeah, we did use that before. So this is a simpler version. So maybe we can use this code to understand what's going on there. We create a request. I think this doesn't actually do the request. We create a response, which is a new recorder. So I'm just going to Google this HTTP test new recorder. Using Safari, which I don't use for normal stuff, so that I don't like show like crazy search suggestions of just like random stuff I'm looking up on the computer in the bar. But one thing Safari had built in is like it would like suggest like stuff like from my iCloud account or from my iPhone or whatever, which is like, ooh, I don't know if we want that on the stream. So I had to turn all of that stuff off in Safari. But now hopefully there won't be any embarrassing search suggestions. The function that we needed was, I think, new recorder. Okay. it returns a response recorder, which we can probably look up. So this is a response writer, and it records its mutations for later inspection in tests. Okay. So it's, I guess I would call it a spy because it's like saving the data so that we can perform. Yeah, so that we can look at it later. Because, for example, on this line of code, we actually do use that functionality where we call response.body and then convert it to a string. And we can use that to assert properties about the response. So I think I kind of understand. Sorcy10 says, I had my Firefox autocomplete Rust add numbers while I was giving a talk about Rust. Well, honestly, adding numbers in Rust, there's like 9 different ways to do it. You can do like wrapping ads, like clipping add. There's so many ways to add numbers in Rust. There's also like 10 different types of numbers. But I was thinking of something much more embarrassing. We're all embarrassed by different things. Yeah. I actually would like to learn a little more about Golang's number type system because it has like a tiny little bit of type inference, but I haven't, like, only for literals or something like that. That could be a fun thing to talk about in a future stream. So getting back to this thing, we're making the recorder, and then so the response is actually the response is actually like the thing that's like, I guess it's just like the response that has been recorded by the recorder. So in this case, we aren't actually looking at it. We're only querying whether the canceled Boolean was set. So I should probably wrap this thing in a t.run. And then I'm going to call this happy path. Then I can put in this other t.run. Let's do a Go format. I really like the Go formatter, but I messed something up. So lines 44, 63, and 64. Ooh. Yeah, I must have forgot some brackets. Or maybe I have some extra brackets. That seems more likely. How about now? Close. Ooh. Possibly forgot to end my function. No. Okay, I do think I need the end bracket here. And I'm missing an end parenthesis for this t.run function. That's close. I'm sure I could set up Vim to like auto format my stuff, but I kind of like, I don't know. I don't really enjoy like configuring editors, so I probably won't do that. Oh, knock. Good point. We might need some more imports. We actually do, because we definitely are going to need time. That is, oh, we probably need to import context. Ooh, uh-oh. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in trouble for also calling my package context. We'll see. It doesn't seem to have caused problems thus far, but I think I might. So hopefully, I think this test is going to pass. We need to import request. Okay. So the test did fail. I'm not sure whether it was supposed to fail. Let's take a look. Like, did we ever? I think we called this context. We made this context out with cancel, but and we did call cancel in this background Go routine that was kicked off using time.afterfunc. I think in a previous stream we re-implemented this function. Well, this is bizarre. So we make a request, we wrap the request in a context, then we make a new request with the new context. I feel like that is a weird way to do that. SourceC10 asks, does Go have any kind of macro system, by the way? As far as I know, what you would do with macros in like Rust would be done with code generation in Go. There is some built-in support for code generation in Go, though, because it like there's some like comments that you can kind of put that will tell. I don't know if it's the actual Go compiler or just tooling, but it will help you identify like if a file is generated and how it was generated. SourceC10 says the t.run seems very boilerplatey to me, but I guess that may be me being spoiled by Rust's test annotation. I forget what that thing is called. I think it's an annotation. SourceC10 says like a compiler plugin. I don't know if they're even compiler plugins. I feel like they're just, oh, it's an attribute. I don't know if they're compiler plugins. I think they're just like maybe just binaries that write out files of code. But I haven't learned, I think metaprogramming in Go could be a pretty neat, or yeah, code generation in Go could be pretty neat. Ah, look at this. The Go blog uses canceled with one L. I like it. Very sophisticated and knowledgeable of them. So the test fails as we'd expect. I kind of thought that it would succeed because, well, let's see. Is there any, like, how would this need to be hooked up? The request must send some sort of cancellation signal to the server, but I guess we have not hooked up the server to cancel the fetch. So I guess it makes sense that the server understands, the server knows that we canceled, but I think the store doesn't know that we canceled. Cool. So this is actually a pretty crazy solution. where this is explicitly canceling the store every time we try a fetch, which is going to make this particular test pass, but I think it would make the first test fail because the first test wants I guess the first test might still pass because the cancellation of the store is like, it's kind of a fake cancellation. All we're doing is set that Boolean. Yeah. Ronak says the first test wants data, but I think it would still just return data because when we call cancel, it doesn't actually do any real cancellation in this case. All it does is set this Boolean to true. We'll need to update our happy path test to assert that does not get canceled. Okay, so this is what's going to actually catch that discrepancy, which is we're going to actually check this canceled Boolean. I wonder why we're doing this with a Boolean rather than something that could actually, like a real cancelable operation. That might be just too much complexity. I haven't really thought through that enough, probably. Yeah, I'm not even going to try writing this myself because I haven't worked enough with contexts to understand what they're doing. Oh, are you serious? We're making a channel? I should have a future stream about different concurrency patterns. For me, channel is a little low level for my preferences. I think it's a good tool for building other higher level concurrency patterns, but I feel like it's basically, I don't know, it's kind of like it's not really, it's not really a go-to statement, but yeah, I find channels often hard to reason about. Source 10 says, are you using any libraries or is this just a Go standard library? Yeah, this is all Go standard library. So we're going to make a context, or no, we're getting the context of the request. For every new HTTP request, we're making a new channel. That's interesting. Then in the background, we're kicking off a Go routine to fetch the data. And then finally, we're using select, which we learned about maybe 2 or 3 streams ago, to choose between 2 cases, whichever one happens first will will be selected. Source C10 says about channels, angry crab noises. Yeah, definitely. Oh, I guess, yeah, if I had like OBS set up, I could have like maybe like an angry like crab, like an dancing animation of that. I think that would be nice. Okay, so I'm going to grab this implementation, and what's relevant here is that if we get the data back from the store first, we will return it, or we'll write it to the response. And if we get this ctx.done event first, then we are instead going to call the store's cancel function, and we're not going to write data back to the HTTP client. All right. So over here, go ahead and put that into the server. Doop, doop, doop. So instead of unconditionally succeeding, now we will only sometimes succeed. Oh no. Had a pasting error. This might be close. I'm gonna format. I bet that I'm missing some imports here. Let's take a quick look. So actually, interestingly, we don't need to import anything for a channel because that's just, it's like even a keyword, like make and chan are, oh, maybe chan's not a keyword. I think it's just a type. I wonder why we need to pass I wonder why the chan needs a string. Maybe we're going to use that in the future. In the previous, oh, I know why we need that, because when we get data back from the store, we're sending it over the channel. So we actually, yeah, we do need that string there because otherwise we won't know what data to send back to the client. All right, so probably this will work. Store.cancel is undefined on line 26. So maybe I think I need to add cancel as a function, as like a method to this interface. Ooh. Now let's go into the test to see what we need to do here. So the stub store, it's now mad because this does not implement a cancel function. So to solve that, we can probably just make a cancel function that doesn't do anything. Victor Calixtro says, I think chan is a keyword. Oh, thank you for the clarification. Right. So the name of every type would be a keyword, right? All right. I'm in trouble now because I have an undefined variable. So we're saying if store.canceled, but we never actually assigned a variable for store. So that's why it's mad probably. So we probably need to do something like store : equals, and then I pasted the wrong thing. A lot of pasting errors today. Pretty hard to program. You know, you might paste the wrong code. Oh no. I've probably ruined everything. So this needs to be a stub store, and I don't think I need anything in the, oh, I do need to actually pass in the response. What is it actually expecting me to return? Let's see. Data. Ah, okay, so we can just put in data here. Something like that? That doesn't look right to me. Ronnox says, actually, not every keyword like int, string, nil, true, false are keywords in Go. They're pre-declared identifiers in the universe block, so you can technically shadow them. That is interesting. What is the universe block? So I could make a new type called int or a variable called int. That would be interesting. so to speak. Store.canceled is undefined. On line 50, I think. Oh, so I need to not use the stub store anymore. That's the issue. I need to actually have a spy store for this test because I need to check whether it was canceled. That's fine. Did I make a new spy store function? No. How do we make that? Okay. So we're going to just only set the response here. And then we actually can probably, we don't really need stub store anymore, but maybe it's okay to have that. Okay. So now the test passed. Knox says the universe block is the block that stores all blocks, basically a global block. And a block would just be like a piece of code that's encoded by curly braces. What have we done here? This is a good question. Context has a method done, which returns a channel, which gets sent a signal when the context is done or canceled. So when a context is canceled, I guess that's the same as it being done. Yeah, it sounds like there's not a distinction there. We want to listen to the signal and cancel the store. Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. So then we're using select to race between the cancellation and the cancellation and the successful response. I kind of would enjoy it if there were more ways to do racing in Go without using channels. But I think that's probably not the biggest deal. Ronok says block is analogous to a namespace. Ah, okay. We can refactor our. Oh, look at how long this. Look at how long this chapter is. It's already been an hour, and we're only like 40% done. Wow, impressive. Source 10 asks, doesn't Go have plain mutexes? Yes, it does have mutex. It also has a read-write mutex. Last stream, we did a little bit of looking at the mutex in Go, and as you might guess, it's pretty sophisticated. One of the neatest features is that it has two modes of operation. It has like I forget what it's called, like a mode of operation for when it's overloaded, where it will change the behavior of trying to optimistically take the lock, and it will instead like put new tasks right onto a queue. And I think the idea is like, if you get a bunch of new tasks coming in and they're like hammering the lock, for some reason that may cause existing work to proceed more slowly. But yeah, Go does have mutexes. Could you use that for racing? Probably. Ooh. It'd be fun to build weird atomic data structures, or not atomic, lock-free data structures in Go. Those things are. I enjoyed the idea of lock-free data structures, but in practice, they're pretty terrifying to write. Okay. Yeah, let's grab this new spy store. Maybe we can just remove stub store for now since it's not being used. Source 10 says priority inversion go. But it's not. Brr, it's more like brr, like the it's the money machine. Is it actually? Is it originally from the printer meme, or is the brr meme from like a different context? I feel like I mainly know it from memes about the U.S. Federal Reserve printing more money, but I may be spending too much time on Wall Street Bets subreddit. What is priority inversion? Like it sounds bad, but I don't really know what it is. And we're using this little thing t.helper, which is a little function that will make the it will make the error, it will make the stack trace not include this function, which is a neat idea. So you can more accurately get to like where the real problem in your code is. So now we need to pass in the testing.t when we're making the spy store, like so, t:t. And we'll do that also on the non-happy path. The sad path? Knox says priority inversion is when a high priority task gets preempted by a low priority one. Yeah, that seems bad. So I guess that would happen in a mutex if you have too many new tasks coming in. When we were benchmarking the mutex last stream, there was not that much difference between the performance of the mutex and the performance of just doing atomic addition. So I'm curious, I would kind of like to go back to that bench at some point and see how much of the performance hit is actually just coming from the weight group. That probably means nothing if you didn't also watch the previous stream. T.run. Okay, so do we need more changes to this? Yeah, we need to, we're refactoring our assertions here. It's kind of interesting that we've got, we're like factoring out these functions that we're only using once. Presumably we'll use them more. Does it make sense for a web server to be concerned with manually canceling store? What if store also happens to depend on other slow running processes? We'll have to make sure that store.cancel correctly propagates the cancellation to all of its dependents. Yeah, I think that that's kind of the definition or maybe the motivation for Golang's context. Soracy10 says, with mutexes, low priority threads can have advantage over high priority tasks when taking the lock in some situations. As far as I know, that is one of the reasons you spin to take the lock for a few iterations. Oh yeah, interesting. I wonder if Golang's mutex has a concept of high versus low priority threads. When I was looking at the code, it wasn't obvious that it did, but maybe the Go routine system already has some example of that. Like maybe the queue is it's actually like not a first in, first out queue, but maybe it's actually a priority queue. That would be pretty interesting. Soracy 10, I didn't totally understand that thing about spinning to take the lock. I wouldn't be surprised if mutexes in other programming languages do have some idea of priorities. Ronak says, it seems like if a task gets the mutex, then it will finish. I think that was kind of what it looked like to me. Sora C10 says, I think the priorities are OS level, but I don't know if Go lets you give priorities to threads. Interesting. Yeah, that would be, I'm thinking that would be tough to integrate with the Go runtime, because when you make a Go routine, I think by default, you don't get control of what thread the Go routine will actually be run in. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some way to manually control that. That would be a fun thing to learn about. So yeah, so this is saying that our server shouldn't need to do this manual cancellation. Incoming requests to a server should create a context, and outgoing calls to servers should accept a context. The chain of function calls between them must propagate the context, optionally replacing it with a derived context created using with cancel, with deadline, with timeout, or with value. When a context is canceled, all contexts derived from it are also canceled. And then more from the blog. At Google, we require that Go programmers pass a context parameter as the first argument to every function on the call path between incoming and outgoing requests. This allows Go code developed by many different teams to interoperate well. Okay. I'm going to try and write this code myself before looking at the solution. I don't think that I'm going to do it right, because I've definitely worked with some context stuff at Cockroach so far, but I don't think I can like write it from scratch. So this actually would go into the server. So we grab the context from the request. Is it the fetch function that would need to take a context? Ooh. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure this one out by myself. So we should get rid of the channel. Maybe we can start by just deleting stuff. We don't want the channel anymore. We might want to take the store.fetch off in the background. And let's go ahead and say, I'm not sure if we want this in the background. I'm going to leave it for now. I'm just going to pass context into there. But how is the store going to know? I think we don't want a cancel function on the store anymore. I think we want the cancellation to happen through the context. Oh yeah, so Sora C10 says most mutexes I have seen before don't immediately tell the OS to block the thread if it is locked, but do some atomic operations to busy wait for a bit. Basically while, and then like repeatedly checking this atomic. Yeah, so I think that the Golang mutex will try and grab it at least once. And then if it's in like happy mode, maybe it'll just continue hitting the atomic until it gets it. But then if it's in sad mode, I think it will immediately, it would block the go routine and throw it onto a queue, similar to blocking a thread, obviously, but in Golang, we're working at the go routine level instead of at the thread level. Ronak says, passing context within every function in the request pass has its pros, but leads to hard to trace mutations. I can imagine that. So this, the spy store, where's the fetch function of the spy store? Did I delete something incorrectly, maybe? I feel like I might have. This is definitely not going to compile at all. Yeah, disaster. You're going to have to look at the answer. Okay. Ooh, okay. So I was kind of close with this. The only thing that, okay, one thing I got wrong is that this should take, the fetch function should take a context, not a pointer to a context. And then also we want to return an error. That makes sense because we probably want to respond that we were like that it was that the fetch was canceled. Delete the code inside our handler for now. Okay, I deleted most of it. That's a good start. Update the spy store. So the spy store is no longer going to have the canceled bool. That's satisfying. Oh, interesting. So we do need this. We still do need this channel. Oh, ew, this is gross. I don't really like this. It feels like we're still having to put in a ton of boilerplate to get this cancellation to work properly. In fact, this code is actually, I think it's like more complicated than not using context. I'm guessing that it probably is more composable. Yeah, they don't call it happy mode. I forget what they call the sad mode. All right, let's try to figure out what's going on here. So, why are we doing a range over the response for every potentially because the response is being returned in chunks or something? This is mysterious to me. So for every iteration of the loop, we check, did we get canceled? If so, returning. If not, we sleep and append more data. Are we appending a single character to the result? This is incredibly confusing code, and I do not like it. I think I was able to understand what was going on before, but I do not get this. So we are still ending with this. This select looks pretty similar, which is if we get a context done, we're going to return an empty string, and then we're actually grabbing the error from the context. Source C10 says, why would anyone use single letter variables in a tutorial? Well, it is actually, a lot of programming languages do tell you to avoid single letter variable names, but I do think it is idiomatic in Go to sometimes use single letter variables for loop iterators. I personally don't mind it, and I actually think that this book has been really great. But I think it's just this particular code that I'm struggling with. Ronak says, it's idiomatic to use single letters that are the prefix of the type. And loop iterators. So C is like a character, probably, because S. Where is S coming from? Oh, S is the spy store, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this thing seems fine to me because it's like it's the method receiver, so it's kind of special. So S is a spy store. S.response is probably bytes or something. I honestly, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are great reasons for doing this, but I don't see them right now. Oh, C is a rune. Oh yeah, that's like it's like a character in Go or something. I guess in Unicode, the concept of a character is pretty confusing, and I think not entirely unambiguous. Ronak says it's not iterating over bytes, but over runes. Okay. So we're sleeping for 10 milliseconds for every character of the response. Seems to be the answer here, so that we actually may get into a situation where we only save some of the characters into result. Source C10 asks, is a rune just a code point? That is a great question. I would like to know that. Rastafari says rune equals code point. This is long. Thank you for answering that. I'm probably not going to read this whole thing right now because I want to figure out what's going on with this code. So this return statement would pop us out of the Go function without it will return from the Go routine without having crucially done this step of saving the result to the channel. So what that's going to do is make us hit this case of the select statement. And in fact, presumably this ctx.done will kind of like trigger this part of the select statement and trigger this select case as well. Overall, this is my last time that I will complain about this, but I don't understand how anyone programs like this. There's like channels just like sending little messages everywhere in the code, and like it appears that this context cancellation is actually like basically triggering two different select cases at almost the same time. Seems really easy to make a mistake. So I'm going to grab this code and put this into the spy store. Okay, so I think we understood this correctly. Victor Calixtra says an int32 is the same as a rune. Oh, so perhaps then does Golang use UTF-8 as the default representation for Unicode? I know that some things will use different types of like actual encodings for the same, even though they're still Unicode. The, okay. Rastafari says, yeah, okay. And Ronak say Go is UTF-8. Nice. You'll take a similar approach when writing your own functions and methods that accept the context, so make sure you understand what's going on. Good to know. Rob Pike invented UTF-8, by the way. Oh yeah, that is pretty awesome. I actually think UTF-8 is nice. Sourcey10 says, I guess it's the same as in Rust, where strings are UTF-8 encoded bytes and chars/runes are single code points. Yeah, that sounds right to me. And I think it would be even like a char in Rust. Do people say char or like care? I've never known how to pronounce that. Anyway, a char in Rust, I think, is also 4 bytes because that's the biggest that a UTF-8 code point can be. I might be saying part of that wrong. I've said this before, but the fact that they were able to encode basically every human language into bytes in a single system is amazing. Oh, Restream.io says, congratulations. You've received 100 messages today with Restream chat. Thank you, Restream. That is the first time we have gotten that award. Thank you for everyone who has contributed. I will be awarding myself 3 Roach coins for this achievement. So let's take a look at what the happy path test looks like and compare it to the existing happy path. It looks pretty similar. I'm not actually seeing any difference, maybe. Oh, yeah, it's this final. We're removing the assert was not canceled. Why did we refactor to add those functions if we were just going to immediately delete them? No. Source C10 says the problem is that a Unicode character can be arbitrarily big, and heap allocating every character is pretty terrible. I do not think that it can be arbitrarily big. I do think that there is a maximum size of a character. Ronak says runes can be up to 4 bytes, but are normally 1 byte. I believe that any character, well, so yeah, I think a character, I suppose, could be arbitrarily big because a code point is not like a character could be multiple code points. Like sometimes if you have like a Unicode emoji that's like a family with like 2 kids and 2 adults, like that single emoji can just be like insanely long because it can contain all of these different like say like male female modifiers and stuff. Right. And so I think a lot of people are pointing out, especially if you're using specifically Latin characters, runes are often only 1 byte. But if you're using, say, a language like Chinese, there you would never see a 1 byte rune in Chinese. Yeah. So all we did was remove some stuff from that test. It's been so long that I ran the test that I think that I've probably broken like everything. So let's start in context. All we've got here is an imported and not used error. I've completely given up on my mission to not have compile errors at this point. So here in context test, line 15, spy store is redeclared in this block. Oops. And then 77, got to remove this assert was canceled. Oh yeah. I'm just going to let that test run and fail. So the happy path did fail because Rastafari, nice code snippet. You've got unsafe.size of and then just the A rune, and that equals 4. Nice. So now we're finally doing the server implementation. So it's very simple. So I like how simple this is. It's kind of moved all of the cancellation logic from the server into the store. I think overall, the server looks a lot nicer. We're going to need format. Ooh, source C10 equivalent Rust code core mem size of char equals 4. So I think what we're learning here is that Golang and Rust seem to have really similar ways of storing string data, which, if you know one language, maybe that'll make it easier to learn the other. Okay. We need to test that we do not write any kind of response. Yeah. That's cool. There has to be, I'm surprised that there's not a way to do this just with the HTTP test. Like, couldn't we just, what if we just do, can we just do like response.body.string and then assert that it's an empty string? I would like this to work. I'm going to try this instead of the solution they suggest. Presumably there is a reason that they suggested it, and it probably won't work. But it would be cool if it did work. Ooh. No, I think it did work. Great. So I'm going to skip this whole like spy response writer. I really don't see, I don't really see why that's better than the response writer. Ooh, okay. So actually we did need that because the code is not yet complete. All right, so let's grab that. Now what is, oh, I see. So this is saying like, even if we write the header and not a byte in the response. So this is saying we don't even want to send back a response with the empty string as the body. We actually want to send back like no HTTP response or something like that. Seems like an interesting way to do an HTTP server. I'm probably not, I'm missing something. And we need to, instead of using the new recorder, we're going to use the response writer here. Now this should fail our test. I'm going to grab this error message. A response should not have been written. Oops. Need to import errors. Okay, so it did fail. So we must have, I guess we must have like written an HTTP header, which we didn't want to do. So the new behavior here is that we'll check the error coming back from the store. And if it does return an error, we're not going to write anything out to the writer. It seems to me that there's an interesting like bidirectional flow of information where we're sending this signal up from the we're beginning the signal at the client, and then we're sending the signal up through the server and all the way up into the store. Then the store is kind of like sending a signal back down through the error of the fetch function. I guess that, I think abstractly, that flow of information kind of makes sense. I'm not sure how you would do it if you were fetching things from two different stores. So this should work now. Okay. Right. I forgot to make a variable for the error. Who forgot to format? Okay, so yeah, we made it. That was a long chapter, but I think there's a lot of good progress. So we learned sending a cancellation, so initiating a cancellation at a kind of outer layer of the code, propagating it into I guess a into, I would say, into a lower layer of your code, and then the lower layer will return an error from the cancellation. So let's just look at the final code. Actually, the actual production server is really simple. All we have to do is call store.fetch. And the nice thing about this production code is that it actually has no idea about cancellation or yeah, it just all it has to do is pass the context. Dorothy 10, thanks for joining. Enjoy your meal of, I want to say dinner, but yeah, have a nice meal. Let's see what we have in the test. So I found this function a little confusing, but what's going on is that we are trickling data back into a little memory buffer while sleeping in between. And then because we have this context variable, if we get a cancellation event on the context, that's actually going to trigger two different things to happen. I would love to hear if there's like an order, like are these two select statements guaranteed to happen in any particular order, or could they both happen at the same time? So what this will do here is return without sending data onto the channel, but more importantly, on this outer select statement, we're going to hit this case where context.done fires, and then we're going to return the error from the context as an error response from the fetch method. And then to actually use this, what we do is make a request, cancel. So we wrap the request context in a canceling context. We, in a Go routine, will call that cancel function. And then we create a new request that has the new context that we then pass to the server. So it's a two-step process. Wrap the context of the request and then create a new request with the new context. Cool. What about context.value? If you use context.value in my company, you're fired. Okay. Wonder if we have that at Cockroach. We might. Oh, so you can like, so you can like pass a return value as the through your context. That's an interesting and like perhaps sneaky way to like pass data through your program. It says context.values is an untyped map, so you have no type safety and you have to handle it not actually containing your value. Well, it's cool to know about this function existing. If a function needs values, this is saying just return them from the function. That sounds right to me. I like that. Good to know that context.values exists. On the other hand, it can be helpful to include information that is orthogonal to a request in a context, such as a trace ID. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the interesting thing about this context is that like you can kind of just like stuff arbitrary value or arbitrary data in that will get like passed all around your call stack. I think that, yeah, for tracing, that does seem pretty handy. And any sort of like, I mean, the nice thing is like you can apply something like tracing that requires you to pass data around without needing to like change the signature of every function in your entire code base. To me, that sounds like a good trade-off. Context.value should inform, not control. Yeah, sure. Context should go away for Go 2. Passing context everywhere is a smell. It would be better if this were somehow solved at the language level. Interesting. So I think an idea there is like you would just say every function or some functions in Golang automatically have a context somehow attached to them. Okay, cool. Well, I think that this was a productive way to learn about context. Definitely feel like I understand a bit of it. Although I'm not sure yet if I like it, but that's okay. I mean, I think that every programming language, you'll have things that you like and you don't like. Yeah. So what are we doing next stream? That's going to be, ooh. So it looks like we finished most of the concurrency stuff. So what I want to do next is to jump back to reflection, where we can do some, I guess, some light meta programming. I'm familiar with reflection in Java, which is pretty gnarly. So looking forward to seeing what reflection in Go will look like. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot smoother. So thanks everybody for tuning in and helping me out in the chat. Really enjoyed learning about Golang runes and chatting about mutexes. I think it'll be fun to perhaps do some more concurrent programming stuff in a future stream. Yeah, so I'm gonna be signing off now, but thanks so much for everyone who tuned in, and hope that you all enjoy your weekends.